All right, welcome back to the channel. So Canelo Alvarez confirms that he is open to an Errol Spence Jr. fight and that he is willing to drop down from 168 pounds and meet Errol at 160, just like Errol Spence Jr. said he would be willing to do for Canelo Alvarez. This, my friends, is the biggest fight in all of boxing. Probably the biggest fight since Floyd Mayweather Jr., Manny Pacquiao, and I do believe that it is going to happen. Let's talk about that in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. So for me, this has been a no-brainer for a while now. Errol Spence Jr. and Canelo Alvarez are without a doubt on a collision course with one another that will probably make each of them, well, Canelo's already ridiculously wealthy. Errol Spence Jr. is getting there and will be there when this fight gets made, and I absolutely positively believe that it is going to get made. It makes sense financially for everybody involved. It is not something that needs to marinate forever and ever, and it's something that we know is a guaranteed, surefire, huge success. Before I get into explaining exactly why that is, as if you guys are from Mars, the reason why Canelo Alvarez was even being asked this is because he was having a fight in what state? Texas. In San Antonio, Texas, Canelo Alvarez will be fighting Callum Smith at a stadium where the San Antonio Spurs fight. Texas is, if you're not from the United States, is an absolutely huge state with a very, very large Mexican population that actually used to be the country of Mexico before it was ever so impolitely annexed by the United States. So a fight in Texas for Canelo Alvarez is pretty much a home country fight in a way, if you understand what I'm saying. Canelo Alvarez is not, however, going to make a ton of money fighting as much money fighting a guy like Callum Smith as he would in a major fight like the one that he had with either Gennady Golovkin, you can count that one, or on the A side of it, the Floyd Mayweather Jr. Canelo Alvarez fight. That is the last time that Canelo Alvarez, or the only times Canelo Alvarez has been in fights that you could consider remotely close. Well, the Floyd Mayweather Jr. fight was not just close, it was just huge. It's Floyd. But Gennady Golovkin fight, I believe that the Errol Spence Jr. Canelo Alvarez fight is much bigger than the Gennady Golovkin fight because Errol Spence Jr. actually has a fan base in the United States for real, and not the kind of make-believe fan base that you would get that was being assigned to Gennady Golovkin, right, by HBO. Because now I get into this a lot about the media, but there are fighters that really do have a lot of groundswell support from their communities, from boxing fans, and then there are guys that get shipped into the United States, and outlets or networks try to develop these guys into big stars. And by and large, it doesn't work. Errol Spence Jr. is somebody that grew his fan base from the ground up, being from the same state that Canelo Alvarez is fighting in this fight would be. And actually, one of the reasons that it makes this fight so huge is because Errol Spence Jr. is from Dallas, Texas. And Dallas, Texas is where the AT&T Stadium is. And you can hold as many as 120,000 people in an AT&T Stadium. The combination of Errol Spence Jr., who with Mikey Garcia put 50,000 people in those seats, along with Canelo Alvarez, that whole thing can fill up for sure. And I am sure with Canelo Alvarez and Errol Spence Jr. that you're not going to get a lot of ridiculous conversations going back about, who don't need to fight who for the legacy and all that. Now, think about a couple things, right? Think about a couple things. And it says it about something about two people. One, it's kind of funny, though I'm not going to bash on him right now because I just want to see him fight I want to see the Errol Spence Jr. fight because I want to see Errol Spence Jr. get paid. Also, I think that Errol Spence Jr. has a lot better chance against Canelo than some people think. Canelo's going to take that fight because he might think it's a walk in the park. I do not think so, man. But regardless, it says something really interesting about Charlo. Yeah, it says something really interesting about Canelo Alvarez, that he would be willing to move down to 168 pounds. Now, first of all, he's saying that he would be willing to move down to 168. He's the down to 160. Right now, he's the 160 WBA champion. So he's the WBC 160 pound champion. If there was any question about him moving down in weight, why does he hold those two belts, right? The reason I believe that Canelo Alvarez is at 168 pounds is because he does not want to make weight, that he does not want to go through the whole dehydration process and the whole weigh yourself down, and drain your body down to make 160 pounds, or like he was doing when he was 154 to go through all that. Canelo Alvarez is fighting subpar fighters at 168 pounds because even though they're bigger than he is, they're not anywhere near as good a fighters. So Callum Smith, like the idea that this Callum Smith fight with Canelo Alvarez is even serious is just, I don't get it. Canelo Alvarez, he's so much shorter than Callum Smith. He was shorter than Rocky Fielding too. Man, just because you're taller, like Rocky, like what did J. Rock Williams said on Twitter. J. Rock was like, man, it's weight divisions, it's not height divisions. Weight divisions, not height divisions. He'll find a way to get in there. But you see what I mean? It's like he's not fighting at 160 right now. He should be fighting Jermall Charlo at 160, right? But he can make 160 because he's keeping his belts there. But he won't fight Jermall Charlo. The other thing is this. Canelo Alvarez is, I do believe it's safe to say, the biggest name or the biggest draw in all of boxing, right? I really do believe that he is. With this Errol Spence Jr. fight with him, that's going to be a 55-45 fight. Might even be a 60-40 split fight in Canelo Alvarez's favor. I really do, 55-45 split for Canelo. I think that is fair, right? But look at how Canelo Alvarez is acting and sounding with Errol Spence versus how Terrence Crawford sounds with Errol Spence. Terrence Crawford sounds like he's doing Errol Spence Jr. a favor, fighting him, and that he doesn't need him, and whoop-de-doo, big deal. But the guy that is the number one guy in the sport, as far as money earner in the sport, said, yeah, I would move down in weight to fight Errol Spence Jr. So Canelo will drop weight to meet Errol Spence Jr., but Terrence Crawford acts like maybe he needs him, maybe he doesn't need him at his own weight class. See, it tells you that just proves to you that this idea that Terrence Crawford supporters have of Terrence Crawford and Errol Spence Jr. somehow being in a boxing politics sense on equal footing, just how ridiculous that sounds, dog. But see, all of this is real funny, right? It's funny on the Canelo Alvarez side because of Jermall Charlo. It's funny on the Errol Spence Jr. side because of the Terrence Crawford fight, even though it's very possible for Errol Spence to still fight Terrence Crawford. But all in all, I don't think that there's much of a doubt at all that Errol Spence Jr. and Canelo Alvarez are going to have this fight. There's not another option. There's not a better option for Canelo Alvarez on the planet than there is for Errol Spence. And there's not a better option for Errol Spence on the planet than there is for Canelo Alvarez if the goal is to make a lot of money really, really quick. You know what I mean? It's those guys in Texas on pay-per-view with a gate with 100,000 fans there. I guarantee you I would be there and I would be amped for it. But at the same time, it would be somewhat bittersweet to see it because I know that Jermall Charlo wouldn't have got the shot that he deserved, and Terrence Crawford may not get his chance at that type of stage, the type of stage Errol Spence and Canelo will be on because of his promotional ties. But anyway, that's just my take on the matter. You let me know what you think, and with that, I'm out. Peace.